Okay. Microphone. We're just gonna use this one. Okay. Can you get this off? Yes. What's going on over there?
This is great. I'm sure I get hired by Hollywood after this.
Oh my gosh, this is better?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for coming. Some of you have flown here from all over the country: Florida, Maryland, Mississippi, Tennessee, Texas, Washington, Minnesota, Arizona, Oregon, Nevada, and last but not least, California. I am completely humbled by you being here. And a huge thanks to Susie and her team for organizing this event. It takes hours and hours to make a night like this appear seamless, and Susie has such a gift at doing that. I've gained a new friend in Susie, and I adore her. Together, and with all of you, we are proudly part of a movement to celebrate sobriety, to show you that we can do all the things. We are just doing them without alcohol. This is my story. If you told me 1,044 days ago I would find myself speaking in this beautiful venue, I mean, who doesn't love the name Antiquities Maison Privé, to a group of sober and sober curious women, and Jeff and Josh. About my book, about my life, about a revolution, I would have said you have been in the sun way too long, or maybe you had one too many glasses of wine. 8 years ago, I retired from county social work after a 16-year career in child welfare and adult protective services. Social work is and will always be a good fit for me. I love working with children and families and vulnerable adults. About 10 years in, I started to feel the effects of secondary vicarious trauma of working with children that have been abused. On top of that, I found myself getting really burnt out, working in a system that's so broken in so many ways. The trauma gets in your DNA when a child discloses abuse, and they are the ones that are too many times have to move into the home of a stranger. Sometimes that felt worse to me than the original abuse. There are so many first responders, so many in this room, who deal with vicarious trauma by turning to alcohol, other legal and illegal drugs, and other disorders such as eating, sex, and spending. Relationships can be negatively affected. I know mine certainly was. About this time, I found myself coming home and decompressing with a couple glasses of wine during the week, when before that my drinking had been almost entirely social and rarely alone. I had a beautiful collection of spirits that adorned my dining room hutch. There was a tequila bottle. Do you remember when Costco had tequila bottles and there was this blown glass agave plant in the middle of it? Everyone had to have it, like a Cabbage Patch doll. We had vodka bottles with jewels. We had Hawaiian lace on our bottles, of course, and flying geese. They were intended to show, to really be for show or for very special occasions. The bottles sat there, as my kids will attest, for a long time unopened until they didn't. My wine dependence increased, and I drank more alone than I did with others. 14 days after I retired, UC Davis asked me if I would be interested in teaching social work and coaching. It was and is my dream job. I was now in a position of working in the field I loved, but without the trauma of direct practice. You would think having my dream job and receiving that kind of recognition would make me cut down on my alcohol intake. Nope, I actually drank more. By that point, I had built some tolerance and I needed more alcohol to produce the desired effect of needing to check out. Alcohol had a hold on me. This was cognitive dissonance at its best. I was teaching social workers how to work with families who were affected by addiction while developing one of my own. I felt like such a fraud. I knew I was in trouble then, but it took me several more years to do anything significant about my drinking. I did have several periods of sobriety and periods where I said I stopped drinking, but I was lying. I could not imagine my life without alcohol. And being the high achiever that I am, I thought somehow I could figure out a way to keep it in my life if I just disciplined myself, if I just drank the right way. I was teaching by day and breaking my family's heart by night. My friends and colleagues had no idea how serious my drinking problem had become. I didn't tell anyone. I couldn't. My family knew. My husband threatened me. He shamed me. He left me. Repeat. All that did was make me more defensive, more of a liar, and my drinking literally went into my closet. My boots became my greatest hiding place for my wine. And I'm sure that there's a couple other people in here that have their boots held up by wine bottles as well. My boots are in really good shape. I've kept them for a really long time and they look brand new. And because I was guzzling wine so fast, I began to experience more gray and blackouts. I started pre-drinking, so no one actually saw me drinking at events. They only saw me drink one or two. I was a mess. There were several incidents where I embarrassed members of my family. Embarrassed is not really a strong enough word, though. I had become my mother, and yet I continued to drink. Excuse me. My relationship with alcohol came to an end in Lake Tahoe after a family reunion. My drinking created such a scene, my husband left with no intention of returning to our 34-year-old marriage. All this happened in front of my grandchildren. I could have not hated myself anymore that night. The next morning, I heard these words from my daughter, "Mom, if you don't do something about your drinking, you will not be able to have the kind of relationship you want with me, Jason, and the kids." This was way too high a price to pay. June 11, 2019 was the last day I picked up a drink. I cannot describe the emotional pain I was in after that conversation. My children and my grandchildren mean everything. Guilt and shame that I was physically sick. I walked into the bedroom, got down on my knees of that Lake Tahoe cabin, and heard these words, "Peggy, you're done, but you're gonna be okay." Minutes later, I kid you not, so many in this room have had the same experience. Jen Couch, founder of Sober Sis, and her dog Franklin popped up on my Facebook page. I don't know how the hell she does it. I think I've heard this so many times from people saying that Jen popped up in their lives at the right time. And believe me, for me, my family said, "You're gonna get sober on $97 in 21 days, and absolutely, that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
I was placed into a group of about 25 other women from all over the country. We looked like deer in headlights. I immediately did a video because I just had to get it over with, and I still see that now. Some of us are good friends almost 3 years later, and I have to point her out. I'm sorry, Janet's here, and she was in my original group, and I don't know what I would have done without that group and without her. As Laura McCowan says, you cannot do this alone. I immersed myself in everything sober by successfully completing the 21-day reset and other programs such as Stacey Danford's Gratitude Boost, Annie Grace's 100-Day Challenge, Jen's Alcohol-Free Living Course, Laura McCowan's We Are the Luckiest course, and others. I'm currently a member of Jen Couch's Quest. I read a myriad of books, including The Great by Annie Grace, Ann Dowsett Johnson, Sarah Hepola, Craig Beck, William Porter, Laura McCowan, Holly Whitaker, Claire Pooley, Carolyn Knapp, Anna Lemke, and others such as Brene Brown and Anne Lamont. There are so many. I seriously need to join a support group for books. My bedroom is lined with them. I listen to hundreds of podcasts, journaled, posted, surrendered every day. I still do. I say a surrender prayer every single morning when I get up. The more time I put in, the more confident I became that I could actually do this sobriety thing. I come from a home where alcohol played a major role in creating havoc and intimate partner violence that ended in divorce in the middle of my junior year of high school. My parents were very social, and I don't remember many events where alcohol wasn't the center stage. I thought I was in heaven when at about age 10, I graduated to be the 2 olive, 1 onion garnish maker for my parents' nightly gin martinis. As I grew older, my parents' drinking really bothered me, and I swore I would never drink like they did. Drinking didn't become a problem for me until I was in my late 50s. Until then, I drank socially, and I really thought very little about it. I recognize now that even though my alcohol consumption was confined to social situations, I would consider myself a binge drinker, rarely stopping at one. How many people in here? I know if somebody said, Peggy, you can have 1 glass of wine every night the rest of your life, I would think that was torture. I don't think I could do that. Alcohol abuse runs in my family. My older brother has been sober for decades. My younger brother just reached a year. Both my parents died before I was 20. I never worked on the grief it was to be an orphan in my teens until now. So I'm just going to read something short out of my book, some letters to my father and my mom. Dear Dad. Dear Dad, you walked off that golf course and a widowmaker took you from us at age 47. I was 19 and the world as I knew it ceased to exist. I was still reeling from losing your 9-month-old granddaughter to an accident that would fracture our family for years. You were my only solace, my only comfort. Little did I know I was about to lose Mom, too. You died from the perfect storm, high blood pressure, smoking, and I'm pretty sure alcohol played a role. I'm not sure why I was never angry with you for leaving me like I was with Mom. I think it might have been your complete love for life. You loved everyone, and everyone loved you back. There were hundreds of people at your funeral. Remember when you went out for antifreeze for the car and you came home with a new car because it came with antifreeze? Mom was so pissed. I remember you water skiing by taking off from the beach, donning your favorite straw hat, holding your cigarette in your hand, he was holding his cigarette, very sophisticated at the time, water skiing around the lake, getting dropped off, kicking your skis off as you walked up on the beach, and stamping out your cigarette in the sand like it was nothing. You were absolutely the coolest person I ever met. I loved it when you let me be your golf caddy until that one day I flipped the golf cart upside down. I loved how you took care of Mom after the divorce by mowing her lawn and just checking in on her. I hated you both for getting divorced in the middle of my junior year and having to move to a new town with complete strangers. At 17, I got back at you by making you grandparents for the 5th time. I inherited your sense of humor, your love of life, your impulsiveness, your sense of adventure, and your love of alcohol. I almost followed in your footsteps, Dad, but that's not going to be my legacy now. My children will never have to write a letter like this. I miss you, Dad, every day. I get to see you often, though, because your grandson, Brett, is your clone in every way. He is charming and impulsive, hilarious and compassionate. And at almost 8 years of age, your great-granddaughter Tegan is learning how to play golf. I told you all about her. Dear Mom, the official cause was rheumatoid arthritis and pneumonia, but we both know that alcohol was also responsible for you leaving this earth at age 51. I was 19. Bob, Jerry, and Jim were 9, 27, and 29. All these years, 49 of them now without you, I have been so angry with you for all the things you missed. You missed my college graduations, my careers, your grandkids and your great-grandkids, my successes and my fuck-ups. I inherited your creativity, your love of reading, and your struggle with alcohol. Oh, and I suck at cooking just like you. Remember how our dog Sam was so skinny? I remember walking this morning, I was thinking about how much you would have loved reading This Naked Mind, We Are the Luckiest, The Sober Diaries, and Drinking, A Love Story. You would have loved Sober Sis and The Luckiest Club. I was thinking how those books and these amazing communities might have changed the trajectory of your life as they have mine. I know you would have loved the science behind it all. For me, it hasn't only given me sobriety, but the grace to forgive you. Because now I know it wasn't your fault. I'm no longer pissed off every time I think of you. I never appreciated your growing up during the Depression with 5 siblings and how hard that must have been for you. I didn't have the compassion you deserve for becoming a widow with 2 young boys when you were just 29 years old, or the years you suffered with debilitating and painful arthritis. I do now. This past Christmas, I put out some of your decorations and looked at them with a new appreciation for and a renewed connection to you. I am finally at peace. I hope you are too. I love you, Mom. Someday, I will tell you all about it. In addition to teaching, I have definitely found my place in the recovery community. My Facebook page, The Side of Alcohol, has become an interactive community where people from all over the world come together to support sobriety, the sober curious, and families who are affected by alcohol. I cannot tell you the joy I feel when I see someone post that they need support, and immediately there are dozens of you out there encouraging comments. I'm also developing a sobriety tool to assist people in mapping their sobriety journey. I host 2 recovery meetings a week, one for the San Francisco Bay Area and another for Ola Sober. I guest host on Jeff Graham's Back to Zero live show. I'm a regular contributor to Ola Sober magazine and write a weekly newsletter. Rebranding sobriety has become my passion. Last month, I was interviewed by Annie Grace, who my husband Paul credits with saving our marriage. How do you think I got on Annie Grace? I wrote to her and said, hey, my husband said you are the sole person responsible for saving my marriage. I'm not so sure I'm thanking Annie right now, but my husband. Paul credits saving our marriage after reading her #1 Quit-Lit book of all time, This Naked Mind. Paul, my husband, wrote the last chapter of my book. In June, I will be presenting my book at the Partnerships for Wellbeing Institute in Anaheim. I work for a university that encourages me to live my sobriety out loud. Others are not so lucky. Life on this side of alcohol is good. overwhelming and heavy at times, but I know this is where I'm called to be. Author Ruby Warrington created the phrase sober curious from her book of the same name. Sober curious gives people the space to explore sobriety on a spectrum, not the binary that has forced people into making a decision whether they were drinkers or non-drinkers. Sobriety and sober curious are trending, and I'm so proud I'm just so flipping proud to be part of it. The younger generation is taking a serious look at alcohol. Last January in Long Beach, Sober in the City guest speaker Carolina, and I'm gonna murder her name, Radikalska. She's 34 years old. She was the keynote speaker in our Sober in the City Long Beach. She talked about her generation, how it's looking at their relationship with alcohol in a different way. Drinking is something many young adults do on occasion, but it's not a habit, and that's great. Others like Carolina choose not to drink at all, seeing the benefits of sobriety, whether it be better relationships, and better productivity. Whether you're alcohol-free or sober curious, I'm so grateful you're here. Thank you, and I love you. Whoops, sorry, I do have one thing to say. The people that did buy books that are here, I'm signing them while I'm here because I just didn't want to sign them. So I wanted to send them to you, or if you wanted to have them for someone else. So we can do that later. Thank you.
Hey, I don't think everyone has their dinner yet, so we're just gonna play some dinner music and then we'll continue on.